Hey guys, how are you? Um, I'm just hanging out here, and I wanted to talk a little bit about a couple of things, really, but mainly about my beliefs, um, and how I came to the belief system that I have, and what led me to uh, dedicate my life to ministry work, and what I do with that right now, and the struggle that I have with balancing that and other things because it is a challenge. I'm not gonna lie. It's although my life is much simpler now than it was before and has a lot more focus to it. It's still a challenge because I had a life before I became a minister, and um, my life is very different now than it was beforehand, and my focus is very different, and um, my goals are very different. And I want to talk about those because I'm sure that many of you can relate in some way, and I want you to understand that, I'm coming from the same angle as many of you out there, and hopefully I can be of some kind of encouragement when it comes to spirituality. This is kind of the main thing that I do with my life, and I haven't talked about it a whole lot since I started this YouTube channel, but I've been talking about this for many years now already. It's about 20 years of my life, and at various points it's been on an all-consuming thing. I've spent sometimes upwards of like 120 hours a week. I'm not even kidding, not even exaggerating, doing ministry work because I I was so on fire for it, really, at certain points, and there was a lot to do. So it started off with me at about 8 years old, really. Um, I started reading the Bible, and let's see, I started really reading it for myself uh, at about 8. I don't know what translation it was that I was reading. I don't remember. It might have been a Gideon's Bible, actually, one that you find in hotels. But I somehow a copy of the Bible ended up in a bedroom at my grandmother's house, and so I started reading it when we would go there. I would like sneak upstairs and look through the the stuff that was up in the bedroom that my uncles had left behind when they moved out, and one of those things was a Bible. So I started reading it. I remember which book I first started reading. It was Ecclesiastes, and I didn't realize later on that you know that was the perfect book for me to start reading because ultimately I was looking for wisdom in some way. I was looking for greater wisdom than what I saw going on around me, and just a better way to do things and a better way to understand and see the world. Even at 8 years old, I was searching. Now, I come from uh, a family that has roots in Ireland and Britain. So I sort of come from maybe a bit more Catholic, but kind of a mixed Catholic and Protestant family background. Um, I know that possibly one branch of my tree were Jewish, going back 100 years ago, and a man who was probably a convert, a European man who was a convert to Judaism. I'm pretty sure um, fled. Uh, I believe it was Austria-Hungary at the time, and ended up in Dublin, Ireland, and converted to, I'm pretty sure, Catholicism once he arrived in Ireland, and mixed in with the general population. But before that, I'm pretty sure he was Jewish. Um, so I come from that kind of background. It's kind of a mixed up European background. But I was never practicing, or never practiced or studied anything relating to Judaism. I had a brief encounter with Protestant church as a teenager, and my mom made me go to Catholic school and church as a child. But I never believed in any of those religions, and I was never really fully a member of any of them. And so, but I always had questions about God, and I was always interested in learning about God. And I always knew that it was something that I should get around to, and really endeavor to understand the right way somehow. But I never really saw the opportunity to do that because, you know, the answers that I was getting at the church were very cryptic and vague and not really satisfactory to me. And I just, from a very early age, kind of got the sense that I was being hoodwinked, and not that these people who were supposed to be teachers of God weren't really teaching me anything and didn't really have the answers themselves. So I gave up on that pretty early, probably like 9, 10. Kind of was already, you know, mentally and spiritually really not present at the church, although I might have been physically in attendance at times. Um, and I stopped going to Catholic school when I was 12 completely. I had been in public school at various, uh, at an early age, a non religious public school. And that appealed more to me, frankly, than the Catholic school that I found myself in later. But anyway, let's see. So when I was about 12 or 13, I encountered some kids in a neighborhood that I moved into, my family moved into, in the city of Malden, Massachusetts. And these kids were really nice to me. They were super smart and really kind and friendly, and they treated me like a friend right away, and they were, they would invite me over to play like video games and stuff, and they were always really nice to me. I found out later that these kids were children of Jehovah's Witnesses, a Jehovah's Witness couple that lived in the neighborhood, and I later on met one of the kids that they used to play with that I had met through them um, while I was studying the Bible many years later, like 8, 9 years later. But I met these kids, and I thought, they're really nice. They made a really lasting impression on me, and that was it. I was happy to be neighbors with them and sort of friendly friends ish. But we moved again out of that neighborhood to another uh, suburban city town outside of Boston called Stoneham, Massachusetts. And it was there I started attending high school at Stoneham High School. And I met there through the jazz band, actually. I was playing guitar already up to that point quite well because I've been studying for a long time. And I started playing in the high school jazz band as a guitar player, where I met a lot of other kids who played music and started an outside of school band. Um, joined an outside of school band actually that had already been going and started writing songs for it, contributing my own writing to it. That band was, well, I won't tell you the name. It's kind of, it's a goofy name, but that band ended up sort of morphing into Young Astronauts Club, which I still have going to this day. Um, but one of the very first shows that we played, there was another band that played, and they were kind of different too. So I thought they were kind of cool. Got along well with them as friends, and one of their members uh, was ended up joining our band as the bass player, and it turned out that he had been studying the Bible with Jehovah's Witnesses for a very long time, and so had his mother. And eventually, after school, after graduation, he became a minister, a teacher, one of Jehovah's Witnesses. And I thought that was, that really made me think because I was really focused on taking this band that we had formed and making it really big, and we did that. But he decided to, quit and pursue a full-time ministry work, which I thought was, at the time, I was like, wow, that that's some really serious commitment. And I was actually impressed by that. But it was difficult finding a replacement bass player. So I was still focused on the band, and but one day, my former bass player, who I still considered a friend because we had become good friends, um, came to my house in a suit and tie with some other person. I can't remember who the other person was now, but and he said, "Hey, you want to study the Bible?" I was like, "Sure, come on in." And we did a Bible study once every week for about 6 months. And simultaneously, I started, I had been researching all kinds of belief systems and whatnot before that, but um, and I was really into like ufology. I was really into sort of esoteric beliefs, and I didn't realize that at some point they would perhaps in some way merge with other things that I would come to believe. But it all was part of, for me, a compilation of a bigger picture. But anyway, I started to study the Bible. I also started studying with Mormons at the same time. Mormon missionaries would come to the house, and I would talk to them, and that was really interesting because I never, I had never met them before. There aren't that many Mormons in Massachusetts. Um, Massachusetts is a very Catholic kind of state with some. There are a lot of Protestants too, and a good number of Jewish people. But it's a very large percentage Catholic and Catholic background people, um, or former Catholics, or people who are loosely affiliated with Catholicism, like myself, like I was. But yeah, but I had also started going to like Protestant church, Episcopalian church, a little bit with my high school girlfriend, and that was interesting too. I kind of enjoyed that actually a little bit, but didn't really get too involved in that church. But so I did this Bible study for like 6 months while I was, you know, working part time and focusing on. Actually, I was working part time at one job and then like part time at another job. So I was doing all this work and I was doing the band. Um, the band started to get bigger and bigger while I was studying. So it kind of like that really took me away from studying, and to the point of where uh, it just stopped happening after about 6 months. And after I had sort of acquired an overall general picture of what Jehovah's Witnesses were teaching. So I kept that information. I filed it in the back of my mind somewhere and just went about my life. I didn't really apply any of it. I didn't really fully understand what I was learning, and just left it at that I would get back to it at some point. This band thing wasn't wasn't so distracting. So um, focused more on the band, put out albums, recordings, started, really seriously touring, found replacement bass players, and lo and behold, 5 years later, I'm uh, basically a a rock star, if you will. Lo and behold, and I have a successful band. Uh, I have plenty of money in the bank. I have a place to live in one of the most expensive cities on the planet. As far as I'm concerned, I'm doing quite well. And this is at about age 25. But I just still wasn't really happy. I was very unhappy, frankly. And, I didn't have like a real sense of connection to anybody or anything. I just felt very, very lost and unhappy with my life. And so one day, um, I remembered what I had learned from that Bible study 5 years prior. And I remembered the part about Psalm 55:22. It said, "Throw your burden upon Jehovah, and he himself he himself will sustain you. It says, never will he allow the righteous one to totter. I remember that scripture without looking at it, which is interesting. But so I did that. I applied that. I said, I got I was like, hey, seriously, if you're there, help me out here because I'm supposed to be happy. I've got all this success and everything, but I'm miserable. Help me out. I want to know what I wanted. I want something more than this. And at that point, it was like a light bulb went off in my head, and immediately I realized that my prayers are being answered, and it's not something that's easy to explain, but it was like one moment my mind had been veiled in some way, like I didn't know something, and then the next moment I just knew because partially because I felt that burden of unhappiness and misery just suddenly lifted off of me, and I felt this incredible joy and happiness like immediately, and it was truly amazing. It was really, really quite amazing experience actually. Um, some people refer to it as maybe being born again or seeing the light or whatever you want to call it, but that's the only way I can describe it. Is 1 minute I didn't know something, and the next minute I did know. It just became obvious. So it became apparent to me that what I had studied and learned 5 years prior was indeed the truth. So I pretty much immediately called up my old friend, the former bass player of my band, whose number I still had, and I said, hey, can you come on over? Um, I you know, I believe what you're saying and what you've been saying, what you taught me, and I want to do something about this like right now. I immediately wanted to get baptized and become a minister and start teaching people. And so he came over like a day or two later, and he's like, "Well, look, you can't just become a minister right away. You have to. We take that very seriously. You have to, study all over again and make some changes in your life if there's anything that needs to be changed." And I understood that, so we took a little while. Took like we took our time. Took like a year and a half actually for me to study fully and eventually uh, qualify to get baptized and become a minister. And although all that time I had been teaching people anyway, I had been sharing what I had come to believe with whoever I could, whenever I could, old friends, family, relatives, um, you name it. And I started writing different kinds of songs, different music that was more reflective of my new state of mind and my newfound beliefs, which I think you can notice if you really look at and listen to my music. It's one way before 2000 and 2002, and then after it's quite different. That's a reflection of the change in me and in my beliefs. Um, so I got baptized as a minister on January 5th of 2002, at an assembly hall of Jehovah's Witnesses in Natick, Massachusetts. And it was an amazing day. It was a really happy day in my life. And yeah, it was pretty incredible, actually. Just knowing that, I qualified to be a real bona fide teacher of the Word of God, to me just seemed like a really amazing privilege. And I think about it now, even though it's almost, you know, it's 20 years after me coming to believe in the Bible. And, after 20 years, you get a little tired and discouraged. I'm sure it's that way with anything, but after 20 years, um, I still look back on that day and think, wow, what a privilege. And um, what a privilege it is to really know and have a really good understanding of the Bible itself, because at one point I didn't. I knew very little, um, and to me, it's great to be able to answer people's questions about that, and it's probably still the greatest privilege that I have in life. And when I think about everything else that I do, whether it's my music or um, reaching out for like public office, or which I'm still not sure that I should be doing, frankly. I still really don't know if I want to do that, but I'm sort of afraid that if I don't, that someone horrible will. And that's the part that keeps me moving forward in that regard. I may choose to not do it at some point because, you know, the conflict might be too much, um, but everything I do revolves around that ultimately, and that is still the central focus of my life. My wife is also a minister. I met her through our organization. Um, we teach our children about the Bible whenever we possibly can. They're uh, they're my students, and they're great students. They ask so many questions, and I'm able to answer them, which is incredible because so many parents don't have answers for their children about these things, and I'm equipped and able to explain to my own children, which is great. And now I see that they're growing up as happy people. Um, their lives aren't perfect, neither is mine, but they're much happier than I know I was. They're happy people because they have answers, and I didn't have answers. Nobody was there to answer my questions about these things, um, not in a satisfactory, full way, or in really any way, frankly. Um, so my children are happy. My wife and I are, you know, get along really well because we share that same belief. And, everything I do revolves around that, frankly. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit and help you guys to understand that about me. and I hope a lot of you are in the same or similar position that it, life is better when you have answers to things, and you might not have everything that you want still in life, but at least you have answers, and you know don't be discouraged about trying to share those answers with people and trying to help others, because that's really what we need to be doing at this time. We need to be helping other people understand what we understand, and it's not going to be easy. They're not going to always listen. They're going to persecute you, even as the Bible says. The Bible itself says that man's enemies will be persons of his own household, right? In the times that we live in. Well, that's certainly going to happen and is happening to a lot of us who believe. But, take heart. Don't be discouraged. Know that you're not alone. Know that at least I'm here to talk about these things with you if you want. Um, I'm here to help anybody who has questions about spiritual things, especially. That's really ultimately what I'm here for. And I do believe that at some point, somehow in the future, that um, our governments, our government, whatever in whatever form it will be headed by people who are ultimately guided by God's spirit and God's direction, and uh, that I believe that somehow I'm going to be part of that, and I'm not sure if that means, at some point that it'll be okay for people such as myself to enter public office, but when that time, or if and when hopefully that time comes, um, I'm certainly well equipped to do the job. I have, as of right now, almost 20 years of ministering behind me, and it's something that I've done consistently for the last 20 years. It's not something that I've ever taken a break from, and it is something that I will continue to do until I can't do it anymore, whenever that might be, which hopefully is never. Um, and it gives me great happiness to do that. It's the most fulfilling thing I can do with my life, is to help another person come to know about God and understand God, and um, get to the point where they're also committed to helping others learn. I've seen that happen numerous times, and it's a truly amazing experience. Um, and I never ever thought, as a younger person, that I would be doing that with my life. But once I realized that that what that the Bible is the truth, I realized that there is nothing else. Nothing else is as satisfying, and nothing else will bring you as much happiness. So, and nothing else is as rewarding, frankly. You could, you could help a million people through giving them something like charity, giving them some sort of physical gift. And if you can help one person learn the truth about God and commit to, and they come to the point of committing to helping others to learn about God as well, that is a more satisfying and rewarding thing. And I think personally, a better use of your time than probably anything else, because uh, you know, there's just nothing like it. There really isn't. Um, so I want you guys to know that that's the kind of person that I really am, and um, I'm going to continue to be like that. I'm going to continue to be that person, uh, and I don't plan on abandoning my beliefs. I'm thoroughly convinced of the truthfulness of them, and it's a truly amazing thing. And I wish that all of you out there would do the same thing that I did, and that's look into the Bible. Just pick up a copy of it and start reading it, and maybe you know just take some time every week to have a study. And it might take you a few months or years even to really get to understand it, but it's it's better than not doing it and never doing it, like a lot of people. And it it'll be worth it. I can promise you that it'll be worth the time that you invest. Um, so yeah, and those of you who are discouraged about doing that, just don't worry, it'll be fine. Just stick with it, and you'll be fine. Okay. Um, I want to talk also a little bit about like fake Christians, people who are just kind of using the name of Christ to kind of bring attention to themselves and sell the thought of them being a Christian to the masses. And there are plenty of people like that. I want you guys to understand that. Um, if you see people like putting crosses everywhere and using the cross as a symbol of to make a show to other people that they are somehow Christian because they have a cross that they're showing off, or like they put it put it on their clothing or whatever. Guys, those people don't really get it. They're just selling you something. It's fake. Jesus didn't even die on a cross. Um, and anyone who really understands some basic truth about the Bible knows that Jesus himself did not even die on a cross. That and that a true Christian would not use the cross as a symbol to express their faith. They would avoid doing that. In fact, if you notice, I don't use the cross anywhere. I don't wear a cross. I don't have any crosses. It's not. There aren't any crosses in my house or anywhere. Um, Jesus did not die on a cross. If you look in the original languages of the Bible, the Greek word used is stauros, 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 which translated is an upright stake or pole, like a stake, basically like a shaved tree. Uh, Jesus was executed on a stauros, not a crux, which is the Latin word for cross. Um, I don't believe that there even is a Greek word for cross because they didn't exist. Uh, it's widely believed that, yeah, I don't celebrate Christmas either, Trey. Thank you for pointing that out. Christmas is not Christian, so I actually don't celebrate Christmas. Real Christians would know that that Christmas is not Christian either. Neither are a lot of things that people think of as Christian. Like, as I was just talking about, the cross. I don't have crosses around. I don't celebrate Christmas. I haven't celebrated Christmas in 20 years, um, because of the fact that I know it's not Christian. Jesus wasn't even born in December. Um, and he nowhere said to celebrate his birthday or anything like that. So why would we do that as Christians? That's counterintuitive to the teachings of Christ. Um, but I want to talk about like the showiness of the cross and like using the cross to somehow express belief in Christ, which is it. That's exactly what it is. It's just a showy display. It's not really Christian. Um, and it's indeed a form of idolatry, really. The cross is an idol, and using it in your religious practice is a form of idolatry, really. Um, so we're commanded to stay away from idols and not to use them in worship, not to worship them, not to be drawn to that, because that's what it is. It's idolatry. So, I just want to warn you guys about those people. Well, I'm glad you recognize that, Trey, and good for you, frankly. And God bless you also for recognizing that. I'm glad that we're seeing things the correct way. So we can thank for that together. Um, but so just don't be enamored by these people. They're not. They're not for real. They're using the name of Christ and peddling the word of God. Basically, they're using idols and idolatry to trick people into following them and worshiping them. Uh, I am not here to do that. I do not want to be. Uh, I don't want attention from people. I just want to be, I just want to mind my own business and help people whenever I possibly can. And if that means getting in the way of bad people who want to deceive you and trick you and hurt you and take from you and uh, prevent them from doing so by stepping into public office, you know, I would consider it an honor to do so, frankly. Um, I will I will stand up for you people out there and and for and I'm thinking of our children, the next generation, your children, my children, our children. We have to think about them, and so on behalf of the sons of your people, I will do this if you guys so wish, and if it's okay with you know, as if it's okay with God. And so far, He hasn't really told me not to. And I'm asking for an answer to that question. Does He want me to do this, or does He not want me to do this? And so far, I haven't gotten a no. And if the answer was no, I would know right away, like that I shouldn't be doing this. But that question has not been answered in the negative. All right. So, Trey, thank you for coming in the chat. I appreciate the encouragement, and I'm glad that we see things in a true and accurate light. Um, keep up the good work of learning and understanding the truth about these things. I 100% agree with you. And if I end up in the White House in 2024, I intend to do something about that. And not just about that organization, but many or other organizations. So that seems to me to be in line with Bible prophecy as well, where it talks about Babylon being burned with fire. I would be ecstatic to be able to fulfill that prophecy, frankly. All right, this is Michael Macintosh. Live long and prosper. Talk to y'all later.